Ladies and gentlemen, dear experts, welcome to this ColACP Training of Trainers course. This sequence is on sequencing a training course, progression, structure, planning. Points covered in this sequence are 3. 1. Establishing the training progression. 2. Structuring the training. And 3. Establishing a training schedule, agenda. Establishing progression. Training progression is the organization of learning objectives and activities that the trainer will choose to facilitate the acquisition of new skills, new behaviors that will be useful to participants in their professional life. The training progression must make it possible to determine the learner's path, specifying the different learning sequences. Learning sequences consist of one or more activities to achieve one or more learning objectives. Learning sequences are made up of a continuous or discontinuous set of activities linked together over time, such as 1 hour, half a day, 2 days. Now it is a matter of elaborating the progression of the learning that you are going to put in place. 1. Define the different activities to enable you to achieve the learning objectives, knowledge, skills, behaviors. 2. Group these activities into coherent sequences. 3. Organize the order in which these sequences will take place. And 4. Determine the time required and the time available that can be spent on the different activities and sequences. The process is interactive. As we noted before, the logical order seen in a table of contents, for example, is not the teaching order. Deciding on the progression for presenting content often requires changing what might at first seem most logical. The key issue is to choose the right learning activities. The trainer should ask, what dynamic do I want to create within the group, both with me and between participants? Should I propose activities based on subgroup work, presentations, situation exercises? There's a link between the chosen progression and the activities to be implemented. For this, the trainer must take into account the type of objective, timing of activity, activities that precede or follow. Training is like a jigsaw puzzle. The pieces must be put together properly to form a harmonious picture. Training is a puzzle in which each activity is a piece. It is up to the trainer to find the appropriate breakdown of the content to facilitate learning and maintain interest, depending on the level and profile of the learners, by favoring the use of participatory and inductive methods in the activities selected. So, for example, the acquisition of knowledge is not necessarily based on presentations by the trainer. Purpose or goal. At the end of the training, participants should be able to drive a tractor under all circumstances. Under knowledge, memorize the main rules of the highway code. Explain road signs. Identify hazards when moving or maneuvering. Assess risks to self and others in different driving situations. Under content, road signs, priority rules, maximum speeds, impact of inappropriate speed, visibility, physical hazards related to the nature of the soil, and distribution of volumes. Under methods, participants make presentations, questions and answers, directed exercises, case studies, simulations, and discussions. Thus, rather than presenting the content, trainers can ask the participants to do some preparatory work and make a presentation during the training. Each presentation will then be discussed in a group, and if necessary, the trainer can provide additional input in the form of questions and answers. Depending on the teaching method and technique used, the time required may vary. This will also influence the design of the progression. Based on the previous example, the acquisition of knowledge, in a training course on the proper driving of a tractor. And knowing that, I can devote a maximum of half a day to the theory of driving a tractor. The progress of the different sequences can be presented as follows. The first sequence, aimed at explaining road signs, is based on a learning activity in the form of a quiz, question and answer, followed by a discussion in subgroups on the answers. The sequence ends with a large group wrap-up session. The second sequence deals with traffic regulations. A first learning activity is organized on the basis of presentations prepared by the participants. The trainer leads a discussion in the form of a synthesis of the presentations and possible corrections. A synthesis activity closes this sequence. Each sequence and activity has been assigned a specific time. Trainers will need to elaborate the sequence of events based on the following questions. What will be the main training sequences? How long will they be? What different content is covered in each sequence? Following what progression? Who takes part? Participants, trainers, special guests? What learning activities will be implemented? What training materials and accompanying documents will be required? Structuring the training. Every training course has 3 phases. 1. Introduction. As well as welcoming and introducing the participants and covering any aspects of protocol and logistics, the main aim is to present to the participants the training course, its goals, and how it will take place. 2. On the basis of the learning objectives, training sequences are put in place. And 3. Conclusion. As well as acknowledgements and any aspects of protocol, this involves evaluating the achievement of the objectives. The introduction and conclusion relate to the goals. The introduction includes a presentation of the competencies targeted by this training, the learning objectives. The conclusion discusses whether these competencies have been achieved. Development concerns learning objectives. The learning objectives and content are used to design the sequences. Each sequence has 1 or more activities, presentations, exercises, situation setting. Each sequence is structured to include introduction. What are the learning objectives? Development, implementation of activities. Conclusion, are the objectives being met? Each sequence consists of 1 or more activities. The structure and flow can be presented as follows. Establishing a schedule. Whether for general or detailed planning, trainers must organize their working time. Without a schedule, the danger of not having time to finish the program is great. Your challenge is to formalize the progression you have chosen by integrating different break times. If we don't take into account the necessary time for instructions, discussions, breaks, and allow time for events beyond our control, such as power failure, transport problems, coffee breaks, or meals not prepared on time, a timetable that is too tight means the schedule is unlikely to succeed from the outset. You must draw up your activity schedule and the general organization of the event with a breakdown by day, sequence, and duration of sequences. It is advisable to present this to the participants before the training or during introduction so that they can know the program. This also constitutes a form of a contract between the trainers by presenting the program so they are committed, and participants by setting out what is planned and expected of them. It can be presented as a table in the following format. Detailed planning. The detailed planning is presented in a synoptic table. Learning activities, summary description of the techniques and content for each sequence, possible tools and supports used, time management, including breaks and meals, As an example, the program for the first day of training of trainers course can be presented as follows. Note about this program. Prior to the training, participants are asked to prepare a presentation which is used in sequence 3 on topics which are sent in advance to the participants. The general and detailed planning forms the basis of your training facilitation guide. The challenge is to formalize all the elements that have been prepared, including the instructions that will be given to participants, particularly during group work, exercises, role-playing, etc., as well as the time devoted to each phase of work, e.g., work in subgroups that is then shared in plenary sessions. In the following sequences, we present tools for preparing activities and how to design an activity guide.